Hi everyone, welcome back for yet another video. We're making good progress on Unit 1 to review AP Comparative Government and Politics concepts. Today we're talking about Topic 4, which is democratization. Just a reminder before I forget, we'll be following along with the College Board's CED, which I have posted in the video description below. And of course, if you catch any errors or mistakes that I might have made or have any questions, post them in the comments below. Someone will get back to you. And we're all here in this process to be learning and reviewing. So let's talk about democratization. Democratization is the transition from authoritarian regimes into democratic regimes. The goal is to become strong, stable, sovereign democracies. But really important, this is not necessarily a smooth or easy process, right? A country can make a lot of progress in a very short period of time and then stall and not make any more progress for 5, 10, a dozen years or so. It can also take 3 steps forward and then 5 steps back, right? So it can reverse. They can go off on tangents or offshoots. It's not a clear, easy road to becoming a stable, strong democracy, what we would consider to continue to be a democracy, a consolidated democracy. That word's coming up in just a moment, right? But the goal is to create strong democratic regimes. So they're trying to increase transparency, universal suffrage, voting rights, government transparency, follow the rule of law, have equality amongst their citizens, and so forth. The 2 countries that best represent the democratization process would, of course, be Nigeria and Mexico. Nigeria became independent as a former British colony in 1960. They had several elections, but from 1960 until 1999, really, there's frequent turnover in moving from short-lived democratic regimes, then there's a coup d'etat, and moving into an authoritarian military regime. And Nigeria is currently, ever since 1999, on their 4th republic, right? But since 1999, Nigeria has remained a democracy, and it's made some improvements in becoming a stronger, more stable democratic regime. Mexico's history, we want to go all the way back to 1917. There was a revolution, and they wrote a new constitution. By the 1920s, one political party, the PRI, P-R-I, sometimes you see it as P-R-E, but the PRI party dominated and held the power of the presidency for 71 years. So from 1929 until the 2000 election, the PRI party always controlled the government. Other political parties did exist, other oppositions did exist, but it was an authoritarian state or an illiberal democracy, right? And in 2000, there was a change in regime through that election where the opposition candidate, Vicente Fox, of the conservative political party called PAN, P-A-N, which is an acronym, won the presidency and won government control, right? So again, ever since 2000, Mexico has been making more progress on becoming more stable, strong democratic regimes. Both of these countries have reported moving towards higher voter turnout, so more people who are able to vote do go and vote. Establishing universal suffrage, everyone over the age of 18 who is a citizen of the country can vote. And ensuring many political parties do exist, so there's diversity in thought and public opinion and debate. More of political parties in Unit 4. Another key characteristic is having peaceful transfers of power between rival political parties. So between PRI and PAN in Mexico, for example. The people accepting those results. So sorry about that. They also established, to further protect the security and integrity of their elections, what we call independent election commissions. These are watchdog agencies designed to reduce voter fraud and to certify election results, to give people a sense of security that the election results are in fact correct, right? And they're not being manipulated by the current person in power or the current party in power. And finally, both of these countries, both of these states are federal systems. That's in a later unit video, but federalism is a way of dividing power at different levels. So you have a national government, you have regional governments, and then you have local government. Federalism helps to guarantee that regional interests are represented in the national government. So again, more diversity, and it's another check on power. I mentioned the word consolidated democracy or democratic consolidation. That is what we call a mature democracy. It is unlikely to revert back to authoritarianism. It is most strongly correlated with a liberal democracy, but it's a democracy that people believe that is going to continue to be a democracy, regardless of, challenges to the regime or economic issues, unless there's something very, very shocking. The one country that is a consolidated democracy in this course out of our AP6 would, of course, be the UK. It's been a democracy for a long time. It's going to continue to be a democracy. In a previous video, I showed you the turnover of prime ministers ever since 2022. But the regime didn't change. It's going to continue to be a democracy. Elections are really important when it comes to democratic regimes. And there are various steps that governments can take and actions that Nigeria and Mexico have taken to ensure strong elections are there to preserve their democracies. So they encourage many political parties, and the one thing I want to address, they have gender or political quotas. Proportional representation is something that will come up in Unit 4 when we discuss electoral votes. But proportional representation is just the idea if a political party gets 12% of the vote, they get 12 out of 100 seats, right? It's proportional to the percentage of the vote that they won. So Mexico does have a gender quota, and the point of this was to increase female representation in the legislature, and that was created through a 2014 constitutional amendment that requires what's called gender parity in the nomination of candidates. The idea is all political parties, no matter which political party it is, half of their candidates have to be women on their list that they propose. This has had a major positive influence, which you can see on the graph there. In 2009, only 6% of women were in Mexican politics. Now, it's much, much higher, to 50%. Doesn't mean that that female candidate has to win. It just means that they have to be a candidate. They have to be on that ballot, and then the people decide. And here's another chart comparing it to the G20 countries' average, the mean. And as you can see, Mexico in 2016 is almost 10% higher than the average G20 countries. Finally, we have Nigeria's cultural quotas, and this is actually called the federal character principle. The number one thing to remember with Nigeria is that it is incredibly diverse, with over 250 different ethnic groups. Some even, estimate much higher than that, right? But the idea is that it requires each ethnic group to have representation in federal positions that is proportional to its regional population. So if you're in a region that has some Yoruba, some Igbo people, and some Tiv people, right, you're going to have, in making political appointments, it's just one factor that goes into consideration. The federal character principle still requires that people be qualified for their positions, so merit or competence, right? But it does require that there's a general proportion relative to the total population in that region. This is to prevent dominance of one single group and to give more people of different ethnic groups a stronger stake in the country, so it helps promote national unity. And finally, we have challenges to democratization, and that's mainly corruption. It's a major problem that both even liberal countries still have a challenge with. So there are things that countries can do to implement that, such as independent judiciaries, the judicial branch being able to exercise power all on its own and be less influenced from the other branches. Freedom of the press or independent media is really important to report on government transparency and to help promote accountability of elected officials. And also, separate branches of government, which is a Unit 2 topic, is also a vital step to do that. All right, so we're all done for the day talking about democratization. If you have any questions, let me know, and have a good day.